Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. And if you are watching this at a later date on YouTube, welcome to our discipline dialogue that we have. This is the first one for the fall semester with our ag department and Greg Schneider, who is a former, well, I don't want to do its entire introduction, but former dual credit instructor, now working with the college. Gosh, it's probably like what, Greg, you're like fourth or fifth year now with fourth year um, with the college. So he knows both sides of it well. Earlier in the spring, so last academic year, last school year, we hosted some of these discipline dialogues. They are very well received, and we had over 1,000 views on YouTube afterwards. So probably about 200 people in virtually in person. I was going to say in person, but not in person, but 200 people participating in live and then another 1,000 or so watching on YouTube afterwards. So very worthwhile. We appreciate everyone who's joining. We do have a rough agenda to go through, but really most of this is going to be driven by the questions that you have. We did get some questions beforehand. We'll kind of go through them. We have the rough agenda. But if you have anything that you'd like to ask or insert or agree with, disagree with, please feel free to come off mute and add any comments that you have. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. We'll introduce Greg, and then we'll just kind of jump in. But my name is Dr. Mark Schneider. I'm the AVP of K-14 Academic Initiatives and Support here with Ivy Tech at a statewide position, helping coordinate all of our academic programming across the college. And joining us today from the K-14 Academic Advisory Committee is no relation that we know of, Greg Schneider. Go ahead, Greg.
Yep, my name is Mr. Greg Schneider, and prior to coming to Ivy Tech, I taught high school agriculture for 30 years, 24 years at Hanover, at Southwestern, and my last 6 years I spent up the road in Greensburg. Been part of the dual credit scene as an instructor since it began in Mark 2011, 2012, somewhere in that neck of the woods. And then took over as dual credit supervisor, started by assisting Matt John with some of his overload. And now I am the dual credit supervisor in charge of the Madison service area and also Lawrenceburg, Batesville. So I have 11 ag programs, 19 teachers in Southeastern Indiana. And I also serve on the K-14 Academic Advisory Committee.
Okay.
So we're here to answer your questions.
Yeah, well, thank you, Greg. I am putting my name and email in the chat. So if there's anything you'd like to reach out about afterwards, feel free to send me an email either right now or afterwards. We'll make sure we answer any and all questions that you have. And before we jump into the agenda, I also want to say we are at Ivy Tech's, I guess celebrating would be the right way to describe it, NACEP November. So NACEP is our accreditation body. We're going through our self-study this year. We're going to go through reaffirmation or reaccreditation next year with data submission. If you would like to be a part of that one way or another, if you have like you think your syllabi are the best syllabi in the state for dual credit, please let us know. We're going to be gathering them. We'll be happy to use your syllabi or other examples like that. We have to do paired assessments. If you have a great final, things like that, we'd be happy to gather that. We also have to have some dual credit instructors on a call that gets interviewed by peer reviewers. We'd be happy to have any of you on that if you'd like to participate. If you are so inclined, just send me an email right there. Greg, with that all being said, is there anything kind of new this year in the ag dual credit space, or maybe something that is potentially going to be coming up? Curriculum's always kind of being reviewed on an annual basis. Are there any changes in the ag dual credit space that we should be aware of?
Well, of course, everyone's aware of the new Principles of Ag course and its combination with Ag 102, which is Ivy speak for agribusiness management. So that's been an ongoing process and figuring out what that looks like. I do believe, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we have kind of a grace year this year for figuring out how to bring that together. National FFA has worked closely using the Ivy Tech curriculums to create an online resource for everyone. I'm not sure if everyone's discovered that or heard of that. So feel free to reach out if you need access to that information to help with that process. I'm going to throw this out for your consideration, and I welcome your feedback. As a former agriculture teacher and now dual credit supervisor, I'm tasked with looking at our CORs, which is the courses that we offer, and looking at course standards. And I noticed our principles of agriculture class and our advanced animal science class. When I started teaching animal science in 2006, it was a different course than I see standards for now. And I'd like your all's feedback in terms of how you see that alignment with what you're teaching in the classroom and what you see on the Ivy Tech CORs. And I'll wait a period of time with awkward silence. I'm comfortable with that as being a teacher. Does anyone have any concerns at all in terms of what you're seeing, what you're being asked to do, what's in your courses? Any questions there?
I have a question for you, Greg. I just have a lot going on in the background, okay? My only question for you is there seems to be a little bit, not necessarily confusion, but it's not consistent with the expectations of turning assignments into Ivy Tech or not. So when I have asked on the like principals curriculum about the assignments that that say like they are an Ivy Tech assignment, it's not clear to me if they are supposed to be submitted somewhere. And if so, where?
Yeah, I'm going to watch Mark's facial expression as I answer this question. But my understanding is there isn't anything that gets turned in to Ivy Tech to be graded by Ivy Tech. I will say, and this will come up later in the agenda, when I look at your syllabi, just to show that you all are Ivy Tech, teaching Ivy Tech courses, we have 48 hours of content. You all have like 180 instructional hours. So I just need to see those 48 hours of content show up in that schedule of activities. And that's how I show the accreditors, yes, this individual is teaching an Ivy Tech course. And it doesn't have to be consecutive. You don't have to have Ivy Tech week for 8 weeks in a row and you're teaching all Ivy Tech stuff. It can be throughout the course. But as far as classes turned in or assignments turned in to Ivy Tech, that is something that I'm not familiar with. Mark, can you
No,
expand on it?
you're spot on. And I want to say hi to Elisa there, Columbus East class of 2005, going strong right now. So good to see her. Yeah, for like particular assignments, we don't have like a database where we, like have, there are a handful of courses across the college that require like a common final or something like that. That doesn't apply in the ag area. But if a program chair was like, I'd like to see, some of your projects that you might have or assignments that meet this example or that example, that's well within their rights to do that. But it's more just kind of like a spot check thing. They don't have to gather it. And at least at systems office, we don't have a big database of all the assignments that are being gathered. Sometimes, we do have instructors where they just have a really great project or assignment or whatever it is that the program chair wants to share out with permission of the instructor, of course, to their other dual credit instructors. I'd say that's probably the most common thing that ends up happening in that area, but there's not, to answer your question, we don't have like a submission portal or anything like that.
And that may have also come from using the Ivy Learn online curriculum. I mean, there are Ivy specific assignments that are there, but that's more for you to use as a resource and pull from. That students do not have to turn items in on Ivy Learn or anything along that lines.
Yeah. Okay, so Greg, then kind of you mentioned this a bit a minute ago, but if, what would you say, since you've been on both sides of, this dual credit equation, both as a college instructor, college faculty, but then also the high school teacher, what would you say are the major differences for, between the high school and college side that, people should be aware of? Or maybe just little helpful tips that, sometimes get brought up and people are like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it quite in this way.
Yeah, I would say the number one, and I'm sure this is a question you've all faced because I face it continually as a dual credit instructor, is how do I teach college level material to a 14-year-old freshman and do it with the same level of rigor? And I'm not offering that as a rhetorical question. That's a genuine question. And I think that that's something that we all have to come together to offer tips, tricks, and suggestions. I think one of the challenges is that freshman and sophomore, I'll say that age group in particular, needs to recognize that their performance in a dual credit class is something that beyond their permanent record that follows them wherever they go, goes on their college transcript. And so there's some responsibility that goes behind that. And as teachers, I know I always found that is one of the greatest challenges of dual credit, is to provide that challenging environment that students have to step up to the plate and be willing to swing the bat and make that happen. So I would say that's one of the big differences. If I teach here at Ivy Tech on campus and I'm getting traditional students coming in, they've decided the career path they want to be in, and hopefully they're leaning into that material, and I can teach at a level that they're going to meet me where I'm at. Whereas as high school teachers, we kind of often have to go and meet the students where they're at and then bring them along with us. And again, that's a challenge, and I hope everyone has supportive dual credit supervisors that are willing to help you out.
Yeah, I would also add too, and you touched upon this a few minutes ago about the Ivy Tech class traditionally being 48 hours of contact time, while you have the school year, depending if you're in a semester or full year basis, either having 90 or 180. We'll just say each class is an hour, but roughly, you could say double the class time or quadruple if the course is over a full year. So just, do remember that there is a lot of overlap in the standards. In some cases, the high school standards were copy and pasted from our college course objectives. So there can be a lot of overlap, and it also kind of ties into, what you said rhetorically earlier about, how can we make sure, like a 15-year-old is getting is able to handle the college material. Use those extra hours that you have for instructional time to meet the needs of your students there.
And I would also add, never hesitate to reach out to your dual credit supervisor with whatever campus that you're affiliated with, because they have resources that they may be willing to share. In the case of Madison and Lawrenceburg, Batesville, I have a lot of Reality Works equipment that I can take to a campus or a site that's near that teacher, and the teacher can bring the students to that location to use the resources that we have. So any way that we can support what you're doing in the classroom, that's something that we want to be able to do. It's not always feasible, but if it's possible, then we're there for you.
Yeah, and great point there. And the faculty liaison is to use the NASEP terminology, or your dual credit supervisor, or your program chair, whatever terminology you want to use, a college faculty member is there to help you, to be a resource. Sometimes, it's not set up or designed to be like an adversarial relationship or a gotcha or anything like that, but really it's to be a professional relationship between two colleagues on how to, deliver this college content in the best means possible. And I know, sometimes the college side can be a little bit heavy on the, maybe the curriculum and a little dense on that area, but our program chairs learn a lot from our high school teachers, especially when it comes to pedagogy and different, styles and manners of delivering curriculum. It's a two-way street, two-way conversation, and we want to help each other out as much as possible. But the college also benefits greatly from all the 3,000 plus dual credit instructors we have. Uh, Kind of moving along here, Greg. With ag, would you have anything to say regarding, the push from the state now has been not just to get students dual credit, but to get them towards a completion of some sort, whether it's on the before they graduate high school and getting a certificate maybe, or taking that, the 18 to 30 credit hours that they might earn in high school and parlaying that into some sort of degree at Ivy Tech, or transferring it to another institution, a four-year institution, after they graduate high school and maybe go through Ivy Tech, or maybe just go straight to college, four-year college. What opportunities are there for students after they while they are in high school, but then also after they graduate in the ag pathway?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, as everyone knows, almost every agriculture class you teach can be offered for dual credit. Um, the opportunities for a student beyond the experiences they have in high school, well, while they're in high school also. I know here at the Madison campus, through the industrial tech pathway, information technology pathway, we have quite a few dual enroll students that actually come on campus to take courses. So if proximity wise, that's an option for your students to go to an Ivy Tech class or a campus to take courses, then they could potentially graduate with a technical certificate, which is halfway to an associate's. So that's an option. Then, of course, always after graduation, the credits that you teach as Ivy Tech adjuncts are transferable to an Ivy Tech institute or one of our partnering schools. So there's opportunities for them to get ahead in the agriculture game that way by having you as an instructor and enrolling in your coursework.
Okay. Moving over kind of towards to the curriculum side of things. Um, Not to put you on a spot here, but do you have any either places you can point people to online, or maybe it's in the PD shells that you helped develop over the last year or two, or just anything else? Are there good examples of assignments, projects, exams, other things like that that maybe you could point people to, or maybe you have a great colleague that's on the call that you'd like to say everyone needs to email so and so and bombard them with all of their inbox with all kinds of great.
Everyone email Lisa Dickerson and ask her anything you want to know. If you need to borrow lunch money, whatever. I think Lisa is going to be a great resource. She has crafted multiple $1,000 grants on snow days, just coming into work and just jotting some ideas down. So tremendous resource right there in Hope.
It's all those
Uh,
it's all that Columbus East greatness right there.
that is totally it. I would also add, National FFA is a wonderful resource. In the spirit of you speak, we listen. They heard the challenges that everyone had with the principles of ag when we transitioned from the AFNR course and taught principles of agriculture as a dual credit course. And so in response to that, they started writing the curriculum for principles of ag when Ag 102 or ag business was added to the mix. They put the brakes on and then backed up and have an addendum now for Ag 102. So I think the National FFA, I think we're fortunate to have them located here in Indiana. And they're a tremendous resource for online curriculum and just resources in general for agriculture teachers.
Perfect. Just a couple more questions here before we open it up for kind of Q&A. One thing that's kind of popped up here recently is we get questions about like what a site, I think probably this is just because we've had a lot of new dual credit instructors recently. What's a site visit look like? What are you looking for in a site visit? Kind of to go in that spirit of, like I said, we're not trying to have like a aha, I got you or anything like that type moment, but looking at when you go to a school for a site visit, what would you say is, kind of on your radar? And just to provide everyone what the requirement from a systems perspective is for a site visit, new dual credit instructors have to have a face-to-face site visit with their program chair from the college that oversees their course that first year. And then after that, it basically goes on an every other year cadence. So year one is required face-to-face, year two is optional, year three is required, but that can be done virtually if it works for the parties. Year four would be optional, and then it kind of resets again, where year five would be that face-to-face visit, and year six optional, things like that. So all that to say or ask, Greg, what would you say you're looking for on your site visits?
Well, first I want to say when a dual credit supervisor, or what's the word, faculty liaisons, Mark,
There you
you
go.
see. Thank you. When the faculty liaisons come to your classroom, and it is not a class evaluation in terms of like if your principal was sitting in there. My role as dual credit supervisor is to observe your class. First of all, to make sure how you are teaching. I mean, that's you want to kind of have your best foot forward, and you want that day to be a typical day in the life of. It's not a day that you want to show angels in the outfield or some video, and you want it to be something that shows some pretty solid instruction. But it also is my opportunity to get to know you. I always request that I'll observe a class or two, but I also like to overlap it with your prep. I hate taking up your prep, but I want to be able to have an opportunity to have some conversation with you while I'm in the building, an opportunity for you to ask questions of me, make requests of me. It gives me an opportunity to see your facilities, so I have an idea, is there something that I have that I can share to help support you with where you're at? Introduce me to your students. Sometimes I go in and I'm just that guy in the back, and the teacher never tells them who I am or why I'm there. But I'd love to be able to help explain to them, answer the students' questions on what dual credit is and how that works and how that's going to impact them down the road. So again, and I have a site evaluation form that I will send you in advance, so you know exactly what I'm looking for, and you can kind of plan your day around that. And then I'll fill out the paperwork. When I submit the paperwork, you'll get the opportunity to read all the comments that I write down, and you confirm that you received them. So I always look forward to those days, and I like to think that the teachers in my service areas look forward to the visits as well.
Okay, great. A reminder that I want to give everyone, you should have received an email from your K-14 director, the campus you work with. I mentioned the professional development modules earlier. Those were launched earlier in the fall. They are not due until April 1st. So, I mean, you have just a handful of days, less than 6 months to get them completed. Probably, especially if you're a veteran instructor, it would take you less than 2 hours to get them done. But it is something that is required for our accreditation. So as you do have time, as time allows it, potentially maybe during, the Christmas break, week off or something like that, just a reminder to, check that off sometime before April 1st. If you have suggestions or comments, I get those all sent to me whenever they go through, good, bad, or whatever regarding comments. But we would like to make these as relevant as possible. And then I work closely with Greg and the other faculty members on the academic advisory committee. So for those, so just a reminder to get that done whenever time allows. I would ask one other thing here, Greg. I know there's a lot going on in the high school world right now with high school redesign and what new diploma requirements might be moving forward, which all that has yet to be formally finalized. They still have another, 8 weeks or so before that has to be finalized. But kind of thinking along the lines of like work-based learning, CTE, how that all fits in. Do you have any recommendations, thoughts, or maybe it's just a to be determined, waiting until 1st of January when the high school redesign kind of closes out and the implementation stage kicks in. Do you have anything you'd like to share on that front right there?
Sure, absolutely. My day job here at Ivy Tech is serving in the Career Link office. And what I do is I oversee work-based learning. One of the reasons why I was able to make the transition after I retired from teaching to Ivy Tech is because of the experience I had as an agriculture teacher. And I know you all have a lot of strong relationships with industry. So as we move towards an environment where work-based learning is seen as the effective tool for student learning as it is, we can still help you. So I would suggest if you need guidelines on work-based learning, how to provide those opportunities, engaging with employers, please consider the CareerLink office at your friendly local Ivy Tech campus as a resource, especially if your school does not have a work-based learning coordinator. I also work closely with the work-based learning coordinators at schools within the Madison service area, and I work even more closely with the schools that do not have work-based learning coordinators, because they don't have the advantage of someone that can speak education and also speak industry. So I would encourage you, as work-based learning becomes more prevalent, you all are already well positioned to be successful in that arena, but do consider Ivy Tech as a resource.
Okay. And then just another thing to keep in mind for all of our dual credit instructors is we got quite the group here now. I think ag was actually our biggest one from the spring. We had like 20-ish in the spring. So ag well represented on this call. We appreciate everyone being on here. As a dual credit instructor, there are a few benefits that you get that are provided to our adjunct faculty. You're considered adjunct faculty here with the college. Unfortunately, pay is not one of them, but there are other benefits that you get. For instance, if you or your spouse or any of your dependents are taking courses with Ivy Tech and you've been an instructor for at least one school year, you are entitled to 2 free not dual credit, but on-campus courses every semester. So that's fall, spring, and summer. You can take 2 courses, or if your spouse or your kids are, or whatever, you can get the 2 courses, basically $1,000 in free tuition right there. If you are thinking about doing that, or if you know one of your kids is going to be going to Ivy Tech or anything like that, reach out to your K-14 director. They can help get the paperwork filed with HR, so that way you can save a little bit on your tuition right there. And then also, if you use your Ivy Tech credentials, you can log into myivy.ivytech.edu, and you can download all the Microsoft Office products for free, as long as you have your Ivy Tech active email going actively. So as long as you're being a dual credit instructor with us, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of that. I have no idea what a subscription costs for that individually, but I know it's a lot of money. And so it can save you a few bucks that way if you download all of that and use your Ivy Tech credentials to maintain that. So do keep that in mind, as a few extra little perks there for being a dual credit instructor. With all that being said, Greg and I have been talking here for about a half hour or so. Want to open up the floor here to any questions anyone might have. And if you have no questions, that's perfectly fine. We don't need to put anyone on the spot or anything like that. But we do want to give the opportunity to offer up any questions, suggestions, comments, anything like that. It is a disciplined dialogue, and dialogue always works best with more people participating in it. So all that to say, if anyone has any questions, now's a great time to come off mute and ask that question.
I have a question. Sorry. I'm Mike Jones. We don't get out of school till 3:30, so I just got on the meeting. I don't know exactly what you went over at the beginning.
Okay, well, we have a recording here. Thank you for joining us. And I will say probably the biggest challenge we've had with our discipline dialogues is finding a time that works well for everyone in the state. We have some schools on Central Time, we have Eastern Time. Some schools get out at 2:30, some schools get out at 3:45. It's tough to get all that. So thank you for joining us when you were able to. We are recording this and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. So we'll be sending out the link from the YouTube channel with the recording when it gets posted, probably later in the week. Any other questions? Okay, Greg, do you have
Does
any
anyone,
closing thoughts before I
yeah,
dismiss
does
class?
anyone have any challenges you want to throw out there? Things that you would need help with?
I have a question. I am going to do work-based learning with some of my students, and I do have a work-based learning coordinator. I looked online at the associate's degree to try to figure out like what credits my students could and like would count. And there was an internship dual credit course there, and I didn't know like what the qualifications for an internship dual credit course were. And how that like correlates with work-based learning, like if there were a certain amount of hours or anything like that.
I suspect I think it's 280 class, Ag 280, and it has
280
like,
is the co-op.
yeah, and it has the, or Greg, you're the expert, so I will let you lead off here and
Well, no,
I can add some commentary.
but I was kind of leaning on you, Mark, because the 280 course is a co-op that's offered through Ivy Tech, and that would be more along a dual enroll line. If it was dual credit, would that be run as a special course, or
It's a
have we
dual
delved
credit
into that?
option. And so I know we're trying to, as all the work-based learning gets, I don't know, invented is the right terminology, but as it's being created here in the next year or so with the new high school diploma requirements, the 280 course, both for ag, but in other CTE programs, they're going to create a similar option for it. We have a couple of people in our workforce team at the systems office level. Verl is our person who oversees ag. And we have a few things that we're working on to see how that will work in the dual credit space. I will say if you have something that you're trying to implement for the spring, please email me. I put my email address in the chat earlier, but I'll put it in again so we can coordinate with your K-14 director. I don't know of anyone doing this in the state yet. This is all pretty new. So we'd like to kind of hold hands and work on this all together with a few of our workforce people to get it all aligned. If it's something that you're thinking of implementing for fall of 25, I think we'll have a lot more guidance as this is developed in the spring and how these internship courses would potentially fit. For instance, in like all of the next level programs of study pathways, I would suspect the internship course would be one of the optional courses available in the capstone class. But it's in there right now, kind of as a placeholder as we try to figure out what this is all going to look like here come December 31st and later on into the spring. So that's not really a great answer other than to say like to be determined, but if you're really looking to implement it this spring, please email us and we'll be happy to help you and work with you on it.
Thank you.
What other questions, challenges, thoughts do you have? And thanks for that question, Clarissa.
Hey, so I posted in the chat a curriculum source for precision ag. I know that at the beginning of the year, I was struggling to find a curriculum that I like to use to make it relevant. I know that the drones is a hot topic right now, but while I was at the convention, National FFA convention, they offered this resource. It's through Case IH. For those of you that want to show your kids an actual platform that a actual company uses, it was a way to kind of connect case reality to your classroom. Just provided that in the chat, and that was all I wanted to add. Sorry.
Hey, thank you. That's what makes the wheels on the bus turn round and round is everyone helping each other out. What else do we have?
Okay, well, real quick before I dismiss, if anyone has any other questions, I'll give you one more minute to think about it. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is NASEP November, so if you are interested in helping us with our different pieces of evidence that we have to submit, if you want to be on the team of instructors that gets interviewed by our peer review team next year. Anything like that, if you'd like to lean into helping us with our reaffirmation of our NACEP accreditation, please send an email to the email address I put in the chat at the beginning. I need to put that email back in because I know we had a few people join us afterwards. So we do appreciate any help that anyone has to offer on that. Also would like to thank Greg for joining us today. He's a great resource as a former dual credit instructor, as a member of the academic advisory committee. He does a great job, so we appreciate him helping as well. And then lastly, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. I know this is all after your school day has ended. You got lots of other responsibilities going on, children to pick up, all kinds of different craziness in life. And we appreciate you taking, 45 minutes out of your day to, engage in this dialogue and professional development. So one last chance here for any questions. And if I don't hear anything, I'll dismiss the group here in about 10 seconds. Okay, well, I'll only wait 5 seconds and call it a day. So thank you all very much for joining, and let us know if we can help moving forward. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.